few years ago, I moved into a one-bedroom apartment in Melbourne, Australia. It was my first time living on my own. The apartment block had been built in the 1980s, and I'd been there for a few months. One day when I came home from work and went into the bathroom, I saw something strange. A wooden board which had covered a hole in the ceiling that led to a small attic space lay fractured in two pieces on the ground. I examined the pieces. The board was an inch thick, and it would have taken Bruce Lee to break it. I thought the landlord had sent someone to work on the attic. I was frozen stiff with fear. Someone is up there for sure, I thought. I emailed pictures to the landlord asking if anyone had been there, with an undertone of annoyance since she hadn't warned me. Her reply read, "Please call me as soon as possible." I called and she explained that her last two tenants had said the same thing happened. She promised to replace the board, and she did. A month later, I woke up one night around 4 a.m. My body was covered in goosebumps, and it felt like someone was rubbing his hands on me. Everything was silent, but then I heard a dragging sound coming from above my bed. It was as if someone was pulling a sack of potatoes. I froze, convinced someone was up there. There is no way an animal could make that sound. After 5 minutes, I worked up the courage to turn on the light, armed myself with a cricket bat, and walked to the bathroom. That's when I saw that the new board covering the hole was broken in two. I felt sick, and the dragging sound had stopped, but I heard something else whispering. The sound was clear and coming from the attic. It sounded like children's voices, and I could hear one sentence repeated over and over. "It's your turn. It's your turn." I switched on every light in the apartment to make things feel normal. It was 5 a.m. and dark outside, so I turned on TV to try to unwind. Then a fuse blew. My pet dog Dexter, whom I kept in the kitchen, usually never made a sound at night, but he started growling like he was being strangled. I'd never heard him make those sorts of noises he was screaming. I grabbed my car keys and ran out, sat in my car, and waited there until the sun came up. When I saw people walking their dogs, this comforted me enough to go back in. The front door was open, but I figured I might have forgotten to close it when I ran out. I went to the kitchen to check on Dexter, but he wasn't there. I felt sick again and looked everywhere inside. When I walked to the bathroom, I heard splashing. Dexter's face was half drowned in the toilet. I took him out, washed him, and dried him. I was so confused, and at 8 a.m., I called the landlord and gave her a watered-down version of the night. "Oh wow, you heard the whispering too," she said. I angrily told her that I am evacuating the apartment today and will not spend another minute in this torture. Although I live elsewhere now, but it is a battle I fight every night. A struggle to find peace in a world that has been tainted by the paranormal. And as I lay here, wide awake, I couldn't help but wonder if the spirits of my past have found a way to follow me, to haunt my dreams, and keep me forever trapped in their sinister embrace. I once booked an Airbnb in Texas when I had a job interview in that area. It was quite far from my home, so I thought of making it a short trip and decided to stay in this particular Airbnb. The reason was simple. It was much cheaper than the hotels nearby, even though it was about half an hour away from my interview location. This Airbnb was located on a secluded road, and it had a lovely view of the desert in the backyard. During the day, I kept myself busy with work on my laptop since I had some tasks to complete for my current job. This kept me occupied most of the time, and I was staying there for 3 days. My interview was scheduled for the second day of my stay, which fell on a Wednesday. I was planning to leave on Friday. On the Tuesday night before my interview, I was preparing for it by practicing interview questions and gathering some last-minute information about the company. I was doing this on my laptop in the living room of the small house probably around 9 p.m. That's when I heard a strange noise, a tap at the window. It wasn't a full knock, more like the sound of someone lightly tapping their finger on the glass. My head quickly turned towards the window, reacting to the unexpected sound. It was dark outside, making it difficult to see anything, but I couldn't ignore it. I felt a bit scared to look outside, but I knew I had to gather the courage to do so. When I finally peered out the window, all I saw was darkness. There was no one in sight. I thought maybe it was just a bug hitting the window. We do have some pesky bugs around here. I tried to convince myself that it was nothing to worry about, and went back to what I was doing. However, the following night, as I was watching Squid Game on Netflix, it happened again, a single tap at the window. This time it was clear that it wasn't a bug, and it made me even more uneasy. But I summoned the courage to check once more. Just like before, there was no one outside, just the darkness of the night. Feeling a bit relieved that I didn't see anyone, I checked the windows by the front door. I even opened the door briefly to take a look outside, but found nothing unusual. I then went to the back door and stepped onto the porch to gaze at the desert behind the house. It was silent and dark, and then I heard a strange clicking noise. It sounded like someone clicking their tongues against the roof of their mouth, coming from the distance beyond the reach of the house's light. I couldn't see anything except the dark desert landscape. A feeling crept over me that someone might be hiding behind those bushes, watching me and playing tricks on me. I shouted out, hoping to scare them away. Strangely, in what seemed like a response, I heard another click. This time I could sense, and it came from a specific direction, so I stared in that direction. That's when I saw someone standing not too far away. They were dressed in dark clothes, blending into the darkness of the desert. I started to walk closer, but then stopped, realizing I didn't want to get too close to this person. I called out to them, telling them they were on private property, and that I'd call the police if they didn't leave. Almost as if in response, the person quickly walked away into the darkness. I thought it might have been the Airbnb owner, but it was hard to be sure. I felt uneasy and couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching me. When I finally turned off the lights and tried to fall asleep, within seconds, I heard a muffled clicking sound coming from inside the closet. The closet door was slightly open, and I couldn't ignore it. In a panic, I jumped out of bed, still in my pajamas, and rushed to my car, starting the engine. I sat in the driveway with the car running and called the police. As I spoke to the dispatcher, I kept my eyes on the house, hoping to see if anyone would come out, because all my belongings were still inside. A police car arrived, and together we entered the house for a quick investigation. The place was tiny, with not many hiding spots. After looking around, we couldn't find anyone inside, which was a relief. I still packed my things and left that place for a nearby hotel that night. I contacted both Airbnb and the host, but I only managed to get a partial refund for my stay. I had a hunch it might have been the host who scared me, but I couldn't be sure. There were no signs of forced entry, which made me think the person might have had a key. But it's all a mystery, and I still wonder who it was and what their intentions were. Just glad I didn't get murdered that night.